Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, we are diving into the third book of the Prodigy series, Champion. Stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored in part by audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code Shelf Addiction, spelled as one word, when you sign up at audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is Shelf Addiction. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Participate in this book discussion by joining the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official or joining us over on the Book Clubs app. Talk about the series with us as well as other bookish topics. I hope to hear your thoughts on this book discussion. You can always find us on Twitter and Instagram. The links for everything mentioned are below in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with some book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That would really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing so. The uncut video version of this podcast is available right now on Patreon. Join us there where we get even more candid with podcast after shows and more. So if you're interested in that at all, you'll need to come on over to Patreon and sign up. You can also show your support by utilizing our sponsor offers. Go to shelfaddiction.com/support and see all of the current promotional offers. Before we get started, I have to issue a spoiler warning. This is a book discussion, so nothing is off limits. You've been warned. Welcome back to another fantasy series read-along discussion. Today we're talking about the third book in trilogy, but it's not really a trilogy anymore.
No,
we'll get into that later. So I'm saying trilogy, but it's not a trilogy. So the third book in out of 4? What do you call it?
Quartet.
A quartet? Okay, yes.
I think.
Yeah, we changed it midway. And joining me, as always, is my fantasy series read-along co-host, Casey from Heart Full of Ink. Welcome back, Casey.
Hello, hello. I'm so happy to be here. I love these chats with you.
Yeah, same. It's always such a fun time. And I look forward to them every month.
Yes.
So today we are talking about Champion, that was published November 5th, 2013 by Putnam Juvenile, and the audiobook was published by Listening Library. The audiobook is narrated by Mariel Stern and Kevin Kaplan. The unabridged runtime is 10 hours and 3 minutes, and the hardcover is 369 pages. Casey, would you kindly share the synopsis?
Well, the opening of the synopsis says, the explosive finale to Marie Lu's New York Times bestselling Legend trilogy. So they were planning it as a trilogy too.
They didn't know they'd be back.
Yeah. He is a legend. She is a prodigy. Who will be champion? June and Day have sacrificed so much for the people of the Republic and each other, and now their country is on the brink of a new existence. June is back in the good graces of the Republic, working within the government's elite circles as Princeps-elect, while Day has been assigned a high-level military position, but neither could have predicted the circumstances that will reunite them once again. Just when a peace treaty is imminent, a plague outbreak causes panic in the colonies and war threatens the Republic border cities. This new strain of plague is deadlier than ever, and June is the only one who knows the key to her country's defense. But saving the lives of thousands will mean asking the one she loves to give up everything he has. With heart-pounding action and suspense, Marie Lu's best-selling trilogy draws to a stunning conclusion.
Or not.
Or not, because we're back for book 4 after this.
And apparently book 4, if you guys didn't know, it was like a much later, years and years and years after the fact. She came out.
I think it was published like 5 years later or something.
Yeah.
So this was a planned trilogy. We thought it was a trilogy.
Yeah.
Then, nope, book 4 came out.
No, from what I understand, book 4 is actually the end. So
yes. Unless she's waiting another 5 years to release another book. But
I know.
Let's
not worry about that at this point. So high level, after you finish the book, what'd you think? Right when you close the last page.
really liked it. And I think this is definitely the best book in this trilogy. We're calling it a trilogy right now. Of the three, I think this one was the best. I freaking love that epilogue. I think that epilogue solved a lot of my issues that I've, repeatedly said throughout, because they're so young. Yeah. They were 15 when the book started. Like, they were way too young. And thankfully, spoiler alert, the epilogue is 10 years later. So she's now 27 years old. And I'm like, oh, thank God. She's a fully fledged adult. She's had time to grow and become a person. And that epilogue, yes. So I really enjoyed this book.
I did like it as well. I thought at first, about 20% in, I'm like, come on, hurry up, get to it, chop, chop. But then once it did, I was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling it. Let's see what happens. And when I finished the book, I felt like satisfied with it. Yes. A little melancholy a little bit because of like the journey of the 10 years that she went through. It was summarized really quickly. But I was like, well, that needed to happen. And now, even though we can guess what happens, we don't really know if they end up together or not.
But it's the start of something new. And it feels like they're going to head that way. And it's that hopeful, satisfying ending.
And not like, so it wasn't skip off into the sunset, but the hopefulness was like good after all the drama they went through.
Yes. Which is what they needed. They needed that time apart. They needed that time to grow into their own selves. And, she had the relationship with the Elector.
She did. And they were together for years.
Yeah.
They lived together.
And then she realized that, no, it's not working out. It's not for me. And so that makes me feel really good about who she is as a person. Like, she's not just falling for a man and running off into the sunset with a man, and
yeah, same for Day as well. Like, he's had relationships in that 10 years. There's no way he's sitting around waiting for that puzzle piece he didn't know was missing. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, no, he was absolutely, he was always a ladies' man, even before he met June. Like, he was doing his own thing. So he was having fun off in Antarctica, and but now he's found her again, and it's just so hopeful.
The story at the end, it was cute. So they like pass each other on the street and they're going to dinner together, which Tess and her are friends. Who would have thought that Tess and her end up being like really good friends, it seems like, where they're like hanging out and they're calling each other, and she's like, hey, check out the news. Hey girl, hey, check out the news. And so it's kind of fun. It just all kind of like gel together. And then when they pass each other on the street, the one thing, I'm like, June, fucking tell him. Like, she's like, I don't know if I should. I'm like, he's asking you directly to your face. Like,
it's been 10 years. He's asking you.
And he's still saying, I feel like, are you sure we don't know each other? And she's like stunned. Like, she doesn't know what to say. She's not sure if she should say. I'm like, you're good for holding your tongue, because I would have told him, you're asking me directly. I'm not going to lie.
Honestly, I was wondering why Eden hadn't told him anything, or even Tess.
Yeah.
Like, they would have said something to him like, June? Yeah, June. You were in love with June.
Yeah.
Like, even if they don't tell him the whole story of like, oh yeah, well, June got your mother killed and John accidentally, and like she wasn't super responsible, but like Eden would have said, I feel like he would have said something.
Because he recognized her first on the street. He recognized her straight up.
He knew her. Yeah.
And I'm like, why wouldn't you tell your brother that he left his girlfriend? I don't know. But that was kind of unusual that they would just act like June never existed.
But I feel like maybe Eden and Tess were trying to create this meeting, because she had dinner plans with Tess. They were on their way to dinner with Tess. Like, they're obviously like, all right, guys, it's time for you to get back together.
Yeah, seems like it. It was definitely a setup, that's for sure. Even though, like at the end there, it seemed like Day and Tess weren't as close as they used to be. Like over the years, you know how when you just don't see someone all the time, you just don't
Well, they
talk
were
as
living on
often.
different continents. And
Yeah.
even June was saying, like, for the first couple of years, they stayed in touch and then they slowly drifted apart. I'm sure now that he's back, they'll get back in touch because he remembers this time with Tess and they have that strong sibling bond. So
yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen in Rebel. I'm sure because, you know, it's okay. So just a peek ahead. So Rebel is about Eden, right? It's more, he's the main focus. I read the synopsis. So I think June and Day are in the background. They're there. But the synopsis reads like it's, you know, Eden's story.
Well, that's good.
So I'm curious to see what kind of insight we get into how their relationship is later.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be good to see them, especially from Eden's point of view. He was starting to bond with her, like when they were in the hospital together, and he was just being his cute little 11-year-old self.
Oh, yeah. He was cute. And actually, I did like his character in this book. Like, he had more presence in this book, and he was trying to decide things for himself. He's very young, but he's like, you know, so yeah, if I might have the cure inside of me, I want to help. I want to help. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do it. And there's nothing you can say about it, kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, look at him standing up for himself and trying to do what he thinks is right, you know?
Exactly.
Despite everything that has happened to him, he still wants to try to help. And I'm like, oh, how nice. Refreshing.
Yes. And also remember, 11 is when they take their tests. And that's when Day was killed by the Republic because he, you know, brother like brother. He's the same age. He wants to fight. He wants to save people. They're the same and they're adorable.
Yeah, they are the same. I guess they were raised in the same household. They probably had similar values and stuff like that. So yeah, I liked it. I liked Day a lot more than I did before in this book. He seemed just, even though they're still young, right? For the most, like 90% of this book, they're still young. But he felt more mature. He felt older.
It had been a year, so like, or 8 months or whatever. So there had been some more time. They were 16, thank God. So they were a little bit older, but still that teenagery. But yeah, no, he did feel a little bit more mature. He'd taken on some more responsibility by taking care of his brother. He had some time to, you know, try and process his own imminent death.
He was even like kind of, I think he was in the role of like a brother/dad. And that didn't work out very well. Like, Eden had to remind him, you're my brother, not my father, not my mother. I'm like, you know, check yourself before you wreck yourself, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like, oh my gosh. Because he was very protective, you know. So I guess in that, you know, trying to take care of him and keep, you know, he didn't trust the government still. He still thought they would come in and yank him away and force him to do tests. So he was really serious about that. And plus dealing with his own illness in secret, trying to hide it. And I think maybe when someone is dealing with their own mortality, like, I'm about to die, even if you're young, I feel like that ages you
a lot. Oh, definitely. And the fact that he had such a tight deadline, it was always just a couple months. There's only just a couple months left before you might survive this big surgery, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely aged him a lot.
Yeah. And on the flip side, I feel like June also, she wasn't as whiny. I don't know. I just feel like, you know, June was taking care of her business, right? And like the first interaction they had been after those, 8 months or whatever of not speaking. And then she's like, hey, how's it going? Hey, I need you to come here.
And he drops everything and runs right to her.
He does. And it's like, here we go. We're back on that train again. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but he loves her, so he'll do anything with almost anything for her, except hand over his brother. And of course, that's what she is asking him to do, essentially. Like, hey,
Hey, we
so,
need him.
yeah,
Can we? And so, okay, so for the first half of the book, I wanted to talk to a nurse or a medical expert because I was like, why couldn't they just, take some vials of blood and just leave him alone? Like, they don't even have to take him to a hospital. They can just take some blood, right? But no, apparently they actually had to run tests on him and give him drugs and do all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, fine. I guess they did need to take him in.
yeah. I think they were like essentially probably trying to give him the vaccine to see if it would work or how it would affect him. I don't know, because I was never really clear on what test they were running outside of taking blood. Like, what test?
They weren't. Like, they weren't telling us, which is why I was like,
yeah.
Suspicious, but okay, fine. I'll buy it. I don't really buy it because, again, like they were taking the blood samples into the lab and the lab techs were working on them. And then when June realized that she was actually patient 0 from book 2 when she got really sick, they just took her blood and then they ran tests and then they took it to the lab too.
And so it seemed like the blood draw process was very painful because, like, when June was getting hers done, he was like, oh, it only really hurts for the first day or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what, did they have a nonstop tap of blood? Like, I mean, what? Okay, so this is the future. And right now it doesn't hurt like that. You get one little pinch and you give blood, right?
Yeah,
so what
that's
are
what
they
I was
doing
thinking.
to you while they're taking this blood where you're in so much pain? I don't
know. And I was really confused by that too.
Yeah.
And they were taking all these pills and I was like, what are the pills for? What are they doing? Is it iron? Is it blood thinners? Like, what are you taking? I was confused about all of that for like half the book because they just kept saying we have to take him in for testing, but they wouldn't say what testing. And I was like, can't you just take some blood and go? Like, they wasted several days of not just taking blood.
Yeah, definitely. They could have just took blood. So that part, yes, I feel like it was kind of wonky, Also, I kind of didn't love that, what's his face? What's that guy's name? The bad guy who ended up like dying.
Razor?
No.
Or Thomas.
Thomas. I'm like, Thomas and what's her face escaped.
Oh, I knew that was coming. Like that. As soon as, she had to give her stink eye, she's like, oh, you haven't heard the last of me. I was like, okay, so she's going to escape. She's going to come after them. I did find it a little weird that we just had that, half a sentence of like, oh yeah, and Razor's already been tried and executed and he's gone. And I was like,
yeah,
for the bad guy of the last book just to like disappear like that.
They got rid of him real quick. Well, the author was done with him and she wanted to move on. She said, we're done with him.
She was one and done.
Yeah. But obviously she still continued on with Thomas. But although I think she tried to redeem him a little bit in the end. Like just a little.
I have so many issues with Thomas and his story and the gay love with him and Matthias. Like, no, stop it. No. I hate that she made them gay. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate that she made it she tried to make it this tragic love story and I just call bullshit on all of it. I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been just fine if they were best friends and he betrayed him. It didn't need to that extra layer.
It didn't need the extra layer of like, if you're going to be diverse and include diversity, no matter what it is, don't make that the reason somebody dies or part of the reason why they die or how they die. Or like, there was no reason for Thomas to kiss Matthias and then stab him in the heart.
Literally, there was no reason.
There was he could have just been best friends. They could have just been like brothers.
Which I kind of complained about that in the last book, even though because
Mhm.
I'm like, what? Like, I didn't really understand. I'm like, what are we saying? What's
Yeah.
happening? It didn't settle right. And I
Mm-mm.
think by letting Thomas tell his story, I think she tried to close that loop and make us believe it more, but it didn't really work. It wasn't successful.
Not at all. It just made me really mad.
Yeah, I get it. I'm like, that didn't need to be. And it
It
doesn't really
didn't.
even make sense for the story. Not
It
really.
doesn't. No. I was happy when he got shot in the head by the colony soldiers. Like
Yeah.
he deserved it. He was not a good guy in the first book. He could have just stayed evil. We didn't need to have this gay redemption kiss arc. Like, no, none of that needed to happen.
Yeah.
He was a villain who stabbed his best friend in the heart. He kind of stalked June, remember when he was banging on her door in the middle of the night and she was too scared to open the door? Like, that's a bad guy.
Yeah.
You don't need to redeem your bad guys. You don't need to redeem Thomas.
No. But
and you don't need to make him
bad.
gay.
Yeah, they're just
sometimes
bad.
people are just bad. Let him be bad.
And then like the part where, they were making the decision on him and the commander, and it seemed like June was flip-flopping on if she should try to save him or not. I'm like, what are you talking about? This guy murdered your brother. Why would you even question if he should die? Of course he should.
I guess we were trying to show that June has morals and, isn't just a stone cold killer. But honestly, this man stabbed your brother in the heart. If anybody deserves to die, it's him.
I think that the two aren't mutually exclusive. You can have morals and not be a stone cold killer and still want someone to die for murdering someone you love.
Yes.
So I feel like that makes you a bleeding heart if you don't want them to die. And that's not good to me.
Mm-mm. It's more than just a bleeding heart. It's, well, what do they have to do in order to be punished? Do you want somebody to just step all over you and, kill you? Because they won't blink. Like Commander Jameson, she didn't give two shits. She wanted to kill everybody, and she tried to. She shot Day twice. She kept killing everybody else. She tried to kill June. She gave the orders to kill Matthias. Yeah, it's kill or be killed. This is war. This isn't, playing a game out in the front yard where everybody can go home afterward. People are dying.
At the end, where, Jameson was trying to shoot Day, she was trying to off him. I feel like June was slow to react.
Very slow.
I'm like, what are you doing?
She kept watching her, shoot at him. And thankfully she kept missing, but then she started hitting him and June still wouldn't shoot her. And I was like, what are you waiting for? Do it. Shoot her.
What's all that training for if you're just going to chicken out? Like, you're going to let him kill him? I mean, let her kill him? Is that what we're going to do? And then, so at the end, and you're like, okay, this is a battle between the two of them. One of them is going to die. Obviously, it's going to be Commander Jameson. But when, she flipped her over, I kind of just wanted her to just fall to her death. But instead, she's kind of, hanging on, and she's, telling her, I knew you wouldn't have the guts, and then and then she's and then she's screaming for help instead of trying to, give me one good punch to that lady's face and watch her fall. But instead she's hollering and screaming for help, and then she's telling the soldier, shoot her. What?
To be fair to June, in this moment, she's hanging off the side of a roof. Her arm is dislocated.
I know.
And this woman is digging her claws into her skin.
Look, if we're going to get some dramatic off the wall action, give me one more thing. Give me the satisfaction of watching her go down properly.
Yes, we definitely needed that, but...
Because, the whole thing was ridiculous anyway, so if you're going that far, you might as well go the next foot and finish it.
Might as well.
You're already there. What's the problem? That whole thing is a fiasco. And June was just saying, wow, she's better trained than me. She's this, she's that. So if you want the little person to win, just let him win. Like,
let him win. Yes.
But that's just me, It was fine. The task was done. She ended up dead, but I think it would have been more satisfactory if June had actually did it.
I think so too. But, this is a young adult book for young kids who are 13 or 15, the same age as the characters.
They were killing each other in Hunger Games. They didn't care.
It's true.
They didn't care. They was like,
I don't care. You dead. You dead.
Right. So, I don't know. I feel like Marie Lu was real lightweight in all her stuff. Like, she didn't skirt the line on too much, you know what I mean? Like, she really tried to keep it as clean as she could, which almost annoyed me because I know there are lots of YA that push the limits and it's like really good. And I feel like she was real soft. She was soft overall and over with the whole trilogy. She was soft.
Yes. Yes. And I wonder if that's why she made the characters so young.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm okay with a little bit of stabbing and murdering if that's like what it calls for.
Yes.
They're not like just wilding out, going around killing people for no reason. I mean, you're going to put them in a situation where these teenagers are responsible for saving their country. Can
I just say, finally, for the first time in the entire freaking trilogy, we had some grown-ass adults who were annoyed at having to deal with these teenagers. And that made me so happy.
Oh, yeah. Like all the senators and all the people, even the other princeps, there were two others. They were all annoyed by June's
They were like
ass.
37 and 32. And they're like, what the fuck is this 16-year-old here? And I was like, yes, those are real questions.
Yes. I loved it. I did like that balance. That was good. But essentially, these two teens saved the country.
They
Scheming and, plotting.
And blowing shit up.
Like, I mean, even Day's ass jumping out of like a plane. I'm like, what do you do? Like, what is this? Like, this is some action like, it's an action movie. Like,
it was. When they do make this into a TV show, I think it'll be really interesting to see all of this action live and see Day do all of these things. Like, he kept reminiscing about the old days, and that time he broke into the bank in 10 seconds, or those times he blew up the other ships. And I think it'll be really interesting to see, all of these explosions on a big screen. Yeah, I hope they do it right. I mean, it could be good. And especially since they are already aging them up some for the adaptation, I think that could lend itself to actually being believable. Yeah. I don't know. I never quite understand how teens could save the world or save the country, or I never, because in the real world, teens can't do shit. Okay, they cannot do shit, and it's a really suspension of disbelief to be like, sure. But that's what I'm like, go for broke. If you're gonna do this unrealistic shit, do it all. Do it all. That's all I'm saying. Yes. So, I mean, while it was good, there were things like that I was like, meh, it's fine. So, like, overall, it's good, but, go harder. Do more. Yeah. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this book. Do you have some other points that you got some plot holes? I mean, the testing and the blood, that was my biggest, like, I just need some medical expert to explain this to me, because I feel like it's a plot hole, but I have no medical knowledge whatsoever. So I feel like if I sat down and talked to a nurse, she'd be like, no, this is what you're doing. This is why this means this. And be like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But to me, like, that just felt like a big,
Yeah, it was a big for me. Oh, and I do want to talk about Day being saved,
mhm.
but let's take a commercial break first.
Okay.
And then we'll come back because I have thoughts on that. So you
Okay,
guys
yes.
hang out for the commercials. When you listen to the commercials, you're supporting the podcast. Check out the book review, journal, and notebook, both available on Amazon. Links are in the show notes. And we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. All right, y'all. So we are back. Welcome back. I want to talk about how this whole time they kept threatening Day's life. Oh, he's gonna die. Oh, he's so sick. And the whole time I knew they are not killing him. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
This author, like I said, is too soft to actually kill him.
Yeah.
But we did get the scene where he had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
He was pretty close to death. And then he saw his mother.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I felt so sad. And like, y'all, I can't get with the dead mother shit right now. I can't do it. And so I was like, oh my God, why? Why is she doing this to us? Like, fine, but I thought it was like a sweet moment. But I'm like, oh, this is going to be, obviously, he's not going to die. What did you think about that moment?
Yeah, obviously he wasn't going to die, but I was just sitting there crying, just bawling my eyes out because, dead mother trope. Yeah. And it did feel kind of necessary because you were saying she's so soft, and she is, but in the first book, she didn't hold back on her punches. Like, she straight up murdered his mother. She murdered John, his brother. Matthias was killed. Like, a lot of people were killed in book 1. And that just kind of set this tone for pain and agony and, depressing stuff that just never came back. Like, it was just the scars of that. So, I don't know. It was just, she is soft, but also she did not hold any punches in the first book.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. And I do think, like, this part was very poignant. You know what I mean? Like, people do see their parents before they die. I've seen that more than one time with people I've been with when they passed. And it freaks me the fuck out. It makes me like, it just makes me really sad and mad. So I kind of just wish that wasn't in there. I don't know. I wish there was another way. But that's because my personal bias. I have my own hangups with that. And I did not like it. But when it was over, I'm like, okay, all right, now he obviously is going to make his surgery and he'll live. I'm like, okay, I got through it. But I'm like, God damn, you got to go, like, I don't know. I just felt like that was just so extra for the tears. It was like, I'm going to make y'all cry. And I got just the thing to do.
It was, but it also, I did feel like it was necessary because, the whole time he always, in book 1, he wanted to see his mother. She thought he was dead, but he finally came out of hiding and saw his mother right before she was murdered. So really, he hasn't seen his mother since he turned 11 and took his test. Like, he really needed that. He really needed.
The day she died. She saw him. It was like, oh my God.
So that's like, what, 4 years of hiding from your mother. And, you can see her in the shadows, but she still thinks you're dead. And then you pop out and like, hey, surprise, Mom, I'm alive. Also, we have to hide. Yeah. And then 2 seconds later, she gets shot dead in the street. Like, it was very traumatic. So I feel like he did need that moment.
Yeah, I was able to, like, get him to survive this. Like, you know, she
Mm-hmm.
says, take care of your brother. You're not ready to come here. You have to stay. You need to watch out for your brother. And that was also like his big driving force. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
all he had essentially left. And so, hey, yes, I'm going to try to. He doesn't want to go, right? He didn't want to leave. He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
ready. So that was like the big turning point. Although he was in a coma for like 5 months or
5 months.
something. Yeah.
Well, they did have to cut out a giant chunk of his brain. So
Yeah.
that felt realistic. I was like, okay, yeah, no, he needs to be
The
unconscious.
brain swelling had to come down and
Yeah.
stuff. But ironically, he was still himself. Like, yeah, he lost some short term memory, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like he was able to retain short term memory. So it's not like that
Mm-hmm.
function was gone. He had just missed some of the recent history.
Yeah.
Like the doctor was saying, like he's able to retain current short term memory. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
he's in that 51st date situation where you can't remember anything.
Anything.
Right. But, you know, I don't know. I thought that was appropriate, being that, you know, he had brain surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of saving him and what he does after, they go to Antarctica. And what did you think of Antarctica?
I liked it. I wanted a little bit more time in Antarctica. I want to see more. Because, like,
Mm-hmm.
we got this extreme of the colonies, right?
Yes.
And then the Republic, and then Antarctica, that was a whole nother beast that was different than the colonies.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious. I'm like, their knowledge seemed vast, and their
Oh, yeah.
technology to share that knowledge, it's like, wow, they've got all these like fake things that look real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought it was really, you know, advanced, and I wanted more of it, but I
Oh,
liked
yeah,
it.
no. I thought it was interesting that it was Antarctica that had grown so technologically fast. And Africa, too.
Mhm.
Africa was the other big dominating factor in this new world because, you know, half of America and Europe is underwater.
Yeah.
But no, I thought it was really interesting, all of the technology they have. And even when June was all like, I used to think the Republic was so advanced. And now I'm realizing we're basically in the Stone Age compared to Antarctica.
Yeah. Like the whole game, like they did the gamifying of life thing.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's different. I wouldn't want that. Like they have chips implanted, which is also reminiscent of other dystopia type sci-fi stories that I've read.
Yep.
And, you know, so you do something good, you get a couple points. You do something bad, like cheat on a test, you lose 5 points. Like just in life, they gamified life. And I'm like, that's different.
It's different and it's fun. But June had this question too. And it was, you know, how do they determine what's right and what's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How do they determine what's good and what's bad? How do they like, she's like, you know, if somebody protests the government, do you take away points or do you give them points? Like,
it's all government control when you come down to it. And she says that, like, what they're, you know, they're all doing the same thing, but in different ways.
Yes. Yes, they're all doing the same thing. And it's, you know, looking at the colonies and how they're so controlled by these companies just for money and ads. And you know, you have to pay the cops to go after somebody who steals your purse. It's terrifying.
So if you had to choose one of these three to live in,
God,
which would you choose?
I don't know. Not the colonies.
I wouldn't choose the colonies, and I don't think I would choose the Republic. I feel like I would survive better in Antarctica.
I feel like I would survive better, but I'm very wary of having that chip implanted in your mind and everything being a game that the government determines. Like, at least with the Republic, you know, you're still yourself.
Yes, but you're also the poorest.
Yes, you're the poorest. You're not faring very well. I don't know.
You're always like in worry of being invaded.
Mm-hmm.
And you're you're the bottom of the barrel. I feel like the Republic is the bottom of the barrel. And even though they were able to defeat, everyone this round.
Luckily, because they had two teenagers.
You know what I mean?
No, not at all. Yes, no, you're totally right. And I don't know. I'd
rather live in a powerful country than a poor one that's unable to defend themselves without like a lot of, finagling. And I mean, he had to give away a chunk of their country to Antarctica to get them to help, plus the cure, right? So I don't know. I wouldn't want to live there. I think, to me, the chip is equivalent to like our cell phones.
Yeah, no, that's very fair.
I mean, I wouldn't want something implanted. That would not be my preference.
Can I just have the glasses that I can take off?
I'll put the glasses on like I'm a guest.
Yes.
But I don't know. So you would pick the Republic then?
I'm torn between Antarctica and the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
If I can live in Antarctica with the glasses, I would go there. But if they're going to force me to implant the chip, I don't know. There's something in my gut that's like, I don't want that chip in my brain.
Well, see, if I can... Now, see, here I am going all the way sci-fi. Like, I watch Halo on Amazon Prime, and there's this chip that was in the back of the soldier's head. And a program told him how to take it out. And the chip suppressed like emotion and stuff. But I'm like, oh, he dug in there and took that shit out. So I'm like, okay, if it's a chip and I really need it to get away, I just try to get that thing taken out. Cut that thing out. But if
it's under your skull, you have to crack open your skull.
I know. This is at the base of their neck, and they had to cut in there. But I mean, in the future, you got to have probably people that are underground that take chips out.
Probably.
And probably give you some alternative way to like report without having a chip. You know what I mean? And it's probably a group of resistors that don't have a chip.
Probably. Antarctica was huge.
Yeah.
Their buildings were 327 stories high. And
so futuristic seeming, That just seems cool to me. I mean, even if I have to hide because I don't want a chip, because that reminds me of feed as well, because there were people who did not get the feed, and the people who didn't get the feed were like second-class citizens and all this shit. So I don't know. It's like you cannot win. Nothing is perfect. You can't win anywhere. It's like you have to choose the lesser of the evils that you think is the lesser of the evils.
Exactly.
So, y'all, let us know which of these would you live in? Which of the three would be tolerable to you? Because honestly, our current situation isn't that tolerable right now.
I know.
So you got. What you gonna do, right?
What you gonna do? Where are you gonna go?
Right. I find that interesting. But yeah, I did like getting to see, like, over the last two books, I did like seeing both the colonies and Antarctica. Those were nice additions and really gave us some perspective as far as, the Republic and...
Yeah, no, it was really interesting. Again, how book one, we only saw the Republic. We thought it was the greatest place in the world because that was the propaganda. That's what June thought. That's what she'd been raised on. And then she sees the world and realizes, no, the Republic is actually like bottom of the barrel. We have minimal technology compared to Antarctica.
Yeah. I mean, even the rich and the Republic were poor versus everyone else. Like, when the oh my gosh, the other people, I can't even think, it just escaped me. When the people came in and they had the colonies, thank you, Lord have mercy. They came in and they were like, hey, everybody, we're going to give you all this money just for becoming citizens. And guess what? If you help us overturn your government, we'll give you this much money. Just report to your local office and tell them your name and what you did. It will give you more money. Like, money galore. And it's like, they did the exchange rate. 5,000 of this is equal to 60,000 of your this. Like, hey.
Which is insane.
Yeah. That's a huge, wow, that's a
Yeah.
huge difference. So, but yeah, I thought that stuff was really cool. I liked all of those aspects. Actually, I liked that stuff more than like the war itself stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was really interesting to see this whole world. And like that's one of the things that I don't think ever really gets addressed in the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, America just kind of is like, yeah, let's kill off all of our teenagers. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what is the rest of the world doing?
Right, exactly. Right. It's like, I don't know. And you know what else? You know, now that I speak on, you know, all the different worlds and like the world building and as a whole, I feel like Marie Lu did a really good job with, I guess, getting to the point of it, getting to the dirt, you know, the nitty gritty of it all. Because these books aren't that long, right? They're not 500-page books.
No, they're really short.
Right. So we got like a good picture of the colonies, of Antarctica, of the Republic, without like these long-winded, overly explained. She did a good job with doing that, keeping it concise, but we still learned a lot.
Yeah, it was short, it was sweet, it was to the point. It was really, you know, June going, hey, I've been told my whole life that the Republic is the best in the world. But now I'm looking at the world and we're not. You know, it was really eye-opening to like experience that with her.
Yeah, and even in that 10 years at the end, June traveled. She left the Republic and she traveled to like what, Chicago or something? She went somewhere.
New York City.
New York, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's deep in the colonies, right? So now they're opening their borders. They're setting up these things where people can come and go. I'm like, wow. So a lot has transformed in this 10 years.
Oh, yeah. The world is changing, which is good. The world needed to change. The world needed to evolve. Yeah. And so did the characters. Again, like I know we talked about this at the very beginning, but I love that epilogue. I love how they had those 10 years to grow and change and become different people, but still find themselves and be drawn to each other. And I'm very excited to see, even if they're just in the background, like what's going on between the two of them in the next book.
Or even if they're together.
Yeah,
because like, not together, honestly, anything could happen. Like when she was with, you know, Andon. Yeah, they were with each other for several years, but it didn't work out. We don't know if this is going to work out. I mean, I'd like to think so. I think everyone is like Day and June, you know, super fans, so everyone wants them to be together. But it would be nice, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they were just good friends. I wouldn't, because
I want them to be together.
I don't know.
I'm a bleeding heart. I want them to be together.
I guess they can rediscover love, and I guess it seemed like he was like healed of some of those wounds, so maybe they can start from a new place, but that doesn't mean they're going to end up in the same place. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I hope they get there. I hope he's had time to heal and become more mature. And yeah.
I don't know. How would you feel if someone you thought you were in love with realized you had some memory loss and decided to bounce?
I don't know.
And make that decision for you again.
Yeah. It would hurt. It would definitely hurt, but I'm hopeful for them. Like, I feel like, you know, they kept talking about how she was not quite responsible, but responsible for his mother's death and John's death. And he needed that time to heal from those wounds.
He did.
He really did. And I think he got that. And I really hope that they can come back to each other and fall back in love.
You know, I would have preferred, I am a fan of honesty, blunt honesty. I would have preferred June to say in that moment when she knew that he didn't recognize her in the hospital, I would have preferred, you know, when he kind of asked her who she was, she could have said, you know what? We have a relationship. We have a friendship, but I understand you don't know me. You should take it, go on your way, right? But she said it to him. I wish you well. No pressure here. Go as like, hey, you're free to go. And he probably would have left anyway. I don't think he would have stayed for someone he didn't remember or know. His brother is the priority. He would have left anyway.
Yeah.
But I feel like when they came together, it would have been even more impactful because she wouldn't have to do this. Well, should I tell him? She's still trying to decide for him. Even in the end, she's trying to decide for him.
This is
true.
And
that is one thing I really think is very immature. Like, even though you're 10 years older, you're still acting like you're 17 or 16. So that is why I feel like I wouldn't be utterly surprised if they didn't end up together, because if it were me and I had the memory loss, I'd be fucking pissed. Like, you gonna make the choice for me, especially if I remember, like, later. All of a sudden I remember this relationship we had or how I felt about you, and the fact that you said deuces to me, I would be pissed.
Yes. That is very fair and very true and very valid. Yes.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. But I'm the bleeding heart hopeful. I want them to get back together. I don't think it worked out with Andon because she was still in love with Day. And Andon is not Day at all.
Right. But maybe she could have fallen in love with him if she had said the truth. And then walked away, because then she would have at least got, you know what I'm saying? She held all that in.
She did.
And then what do? You harp on it. You think about it incessantly. You're constant. You know what I mean? I just feel like there might have been different results had she handled that a little bit more maturely.
I don't know. I don't think she was ever going to completely end up with Andon. Like, I saw the relationship, and I'm really glad that they had those 3 years together. But I never saw them like getting married and having kids and being together for decades. Like, no, they're too different. He's good for her, but he does have that dark side. He does have that his father and him kind of thing.
Well, some can say that about June and Day. They're very different.
That's true. That is very true.
It's like Andon's up here. June's here and Day's here, like as far as how they, you know what I mean? So she's between the two of them as far as status, economics, everything. And so like none of them are on the same page. Not really. None of them are equally yoked, right? As we would say. Right. So I don't know. I wouldn't be mad either way. If they ended up old and married with a ton of kids and grandkids, I'd be okay with that. And if they ended up together for a few years and then not anymore, I'd be okay with that. Either way.
Kind of hoping for the first one, but yeah.
See, that's me being non-romantic.
This is me and my bleeding heart.
I mean,
Jill Thomas, but have a happy ending.
I don't know. It's just not in there these days. I just don't feel love these days. It's fine. One day it might come back and I'll be like, oh, I love these. And I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. All right, let's rate this thing. You ready to rate the book?
I'm ready.
You want to go first?
I'm giving this one 4 stars. I know I gave the last 2 3 stars, but this one, it gets bumped up to 4 stars because I really, really enjoyed it. And I didn't really see any issues with it. The epilogue solved all of my issues, which I didn't see coming. You know, for the last 2 books, I've just been harping on their age. And finally, like, bam, one epilogue. The age thing is solved. Perfect. Love it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I too rated it a 4 out of 5, but I think that is primarily because of the ending. Like, the ending really pulled it all together. And I think I got the most emotional out of this entire 3 books at the end. The last, 15-20% of this book.
Everything's going down. Yeah.
So in the end, I think it was worth it. And it was a good official end to the trilogy.
Yes.
Which is what this was originally meant to be.
Yes. As the blurb said, it was a trilogy.
Yes. So with that said, I do still stand where I stood before on recommendation. I still would not be like, you must read this to anybody, honestly, unless you're like an actual teenager, a young teenager, a young-hearted, minded teenager. If you're like an older teenager, you might not even like it. So I still stand by that, even though I like the ending. And I am curious to see what Rebel holds. That's the 4th book and real final book.
Yes.
By the way, you should join us for book club. You can find us at Shelf Addiction Official on Facebook groups, and you can find us Shelf Addiction Podcast on the book club's app. Both links are in the show notes. So come back in June and hear us discuss Rebel. And if you want to join us in the book club, you can talk about it with us in a private Zoom. Fun time.
Just us fun people.
Yes. In a safe space. And if not, we'll be here for you on the podcast.
Always.
So I think that's it. What do you think, Casey?
I think that's it.
All right, y'all. So we are done. We will see you guys next month. And until then, happy reading. Take care of yourselves.
Hi, everybody.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction Podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.